Just get into the thing.
Oh, welcome. Happy Monday.
Hello, everybody. Can you see us? Can you hear us?
Yes, we are live. We are live. We are live.
Can you hear me?
We're live on the Ube of two.
You too.
We're live on the. It's been a weekend. We are live on our page and we're live in our community right now. So welcome to Coffee in the Community. I'm just reaching for my coffee. Get your drink.
Coffee.
It's Monday, so it's time. But today we are talking about a very specific subject in our coffee. We're not just going to generally chat about confidence and how you doing, which we love doing. We are talking all about overcoming imposter syndrome.
Yes, we are. We are indeed. We've been working really hard behind the scenes just to kind of get this off the ground over the past few months. And we're really proud of everything we've actually achieved with this. Heather and I have been putting together this whole webinar with 21 strategies to help you deal with and beat your imposter, and really start working through that and deal with it. It's manifested in this, as I say, in this free webinar that went live today at 12. It's all live. It's all available. We've already been getting comments from people saying how they're feeling about it and how they're enjoying it. It's been really gratifying to hear that people are really getting onto this and getting involved, and it's really exciting. It's really exciting. So for anyone who may be a little bit confused or maybe a little bit like, what is this? Imposter syndrome. Heather, how would you define imposter syndrome?
Okay, so it shows up in lots of ways. So you'll hear people describe their symptoms of imposter syndrome in lots of different ways. And that's where it can be really tricky. But at the heart of imposter syndrome is this underlying fear that we'll be exposed as an imposter, or people will find out about our imposter. So it's really that kind of feeling like a fraud, feeling like we're faking it, feeling like people are going to know or find out. And so that would show up as things like needing to be the expert in order to feel like I'm valid to be speaking up or sharing something. Then I need to be the most knowledgeable person in the room, which isn't true, because of course, I mean, when I this isn't one of the ways it shows up for me, but when I'm in a room and I'm running a conference with people, I love it when people know more than I do. But if we have imposter syndrome, then we might think, oh, people are going to know that I don't know everything, which of course we don't need to.
No, of course not.
So they're not really rational beliefs, but they are very real to us. And that's what makes it difficult, because it can really stop us from doing what we want to be doing, or it can make us quit. I was talking to somebody at the weekend who was like, oh, I don't know, I want to apply for this job, but I'm not completely qualified. And I was going, okay, hold on a second. Let's just break this down here. That's particularly for women, that they won't apply for things when they don't feel like they have 100% of the criteria for a job, for example. But it can also make us feel, as in my case, like we don't want to ask for or accept help. It can show up as procrastination. It can show up as really feeling like we're trying to juggle too many things, and still we take on more because we feel like that makes us more valid or more valuable. And so there's lots of different ways that imposter syndrome shows up. And in the webinar, we go into the main ways that the imposter shows up. And you might find that you have one particular kind of imposter, or you might find that you have a little bit from each, which is probably most of us. And then we go into the ways that it impacts us, which I want to talk about with you. And then we talk about, there's over 21 strategies of ways that you can overcome it. And with something like this, you need like lots of tools, right? So you need you don't just need like 1 or 2 tools and then you're like, oh, this works. It's like that works, but then next week it might not, or different circumstances it might not, or with different people it might not work. So you need like a whole kit, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit like a plumber. You don't just expect him to show up with a wrench, you know. Right?
Well, I do, but then
Well,
I don't know how plumbers work.
I don't know. I would imagine that a lot of the jobs will work with a wrench, but not all of them.
I mean, but you're right though. You're right though, and it's that thing of, you know, there's so many different ways in which imposter syndrome can sort of manifest within your life, and you know, I mean, for me, it often sort of takes the form of that thing of just not being able to accept any form of praise. Often, you know, I could have done a good job. I could have felt, you know, There are plenty of times when I've gone and done work, shows, big shows, small shows, wherever they were, you know, and I've come off and people have come up to me and said, oh, I really enjoyed your stuff, or I really enjoyed this, or I really enjoyed that. And, I loved when you did this. And I'm sat there thinking, you didn't. You know you didn't. Whatever. Okay, no, it's not true. It's not possibly true. That's not me, or that's it, you must be talking about somebody else. Like it's just one of those things. It manifests in lots of different ways, and it's only through going through a lot of these different strategies and taking on different elements of them that I've been able to kind of really sort of start to work on my imposter syndrome and figure out how it's showing up and figure out how to, we say beat your imposter, and what we really mean is learn how to develop the tools to live with that, and to overcome it in your own way, because you never really get rid of imposter, right?
No, you don't. You will always have that voice. It's learning to befriend it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like I won't say the thing, because watch the webinar. Please just watch the webinar and you'll get exactly what we're talking about. But there's one particular bit that I found super useful when it comes to the whole making friends with it thing, because that is a real trick in and of itself. That is a real trick in and of itself. Hey Sarah, how you doing? Yeah, and you know what? We really want to hear how people are finding this, because the strategies that went into it are many and varied for a reason, because there are so many ways in which, as we say, it manifests and it shows up. And if you're finding, even after this webinar, that after these 21 strategies and secrets have been employed, that you want to go deeper, then you can. We have the option of doing that. We have a really exciting course that takes you way deeper into this and gives you even more strategies to kind of figure this out, and gets you to kind of really look at the reasons why. It gets you to look at all the stuff that's going on for you, not just how it manifests, but where it manifests, what it's doing for you, and ways in which you can really start to thrive and grow with this. Because, like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like one of the things that I've seen a lot online is, people sort of saying, I really need to get all the badges. Like, I really need to have all of these things clutched to me, to feel like I'm okay to do this. I feel that, I feel like I have to make myself so much smaller, in so many instances of my life, that I have to kind of like almost be afraid of my own success. And that's something that is echoed so much online, and so much in person as well. But it's something I've read so much. And these strategies will really help you kind of develop away from that and give you something tangible to work with. There's a lot of people out there who say, oh, well, we can help you vanquish your imposter, get rid of it entirely. And that's not plausible. That's not plausible. But with this webinar and with this course, these are things you can actually fully take on and fully start to work with. I mean, what brought you to dealing with this in the first place, Heather?
Well, so first of all, I just want to shout out Sarah. Is talking about different levels, different devils, and I think and that's the thing is, we face new things, and then we face that challenge, and we tackle that, and then something else will come up, and then our imposter voice will show up in different ways as well. I have had many clients who've talked about imposter syndrome, and I've understood it, and I've helped them through it. But I didn't actually think that I experienced imposter syndrome
Right.
until it was time to get quiet, because my way of dealing with imposter syndrome was to just keep on being busy all the time.
Yeah.
And then that way I wouldn't have to, like, that. Then there would never be the question, how do I feel?
Right.
I was too busy. So
Sure.
so when things had to get quiet, and uh, and then I had to, start to recognize the ways that it shows up. I always knew that I didn't like to ask for help. The help thing. So imposter syndrome is not related to self-esteem directly, as in,
Right.
you can have imposter syndrome or many ways that your imposter shows up and still have very solid self-worth. So I always thought that my not asking for help was related more to my self-worth, which it isn't. It's just that whole kind of, what will people think, and then they're going to know that I needed help. And so that was the most obvious way that it came up. And then as time went on and we stayed in lockdown further, then it became even more, evident of the ways that it shows up. All the plate spinning, all the procrastination, all of the things that I wanted to do but didn't know how to do, and didn't tackle finding out how to do it. And I'm just looking at Sarah's comments here about, because Sarah has actually already been through the webinar. I'm so excited.
Thank you, Sarah. This is so cool.
Well done. But hiding our qualifications and things. You see, this is quite a cultural thing. So in our culture in the UK, there's a lot of messages that are, we're not supposed to be bragging, and we're not supposed to be name dropping, and we're not supposed to be, all these things that are really just about sharing who we are. And I think there's a difference between going, yeah, well, I've got this, or I've done this, and sort of in relevance to the conversation, establishing our credibility or understanding or experience. And I think they're quite different things.
Right.
I'm not from the UK, obviously, so I don't have that same experience, although I have adopted a lot of it, because I've had to learn to be quiet about my accomplishments, because it isn't welcome in the UK in a lot of places. And again, I think a lot of it depends on where you work. So I work in the corporate world. You are supposed to establish credibility, and if you don't, then you don't get credibility.
Yeah.
So it very much depends on where where you are, and how the culture manifests itself. But then in those kind of situations where you are supposed to establish credibility, if you're feeling like a fraud, and people are going to know, and people are, you're supposed to know this stuff, and you don't, then you don't ask the questions. And then, of course, that makes things a lot more difficult as well.
Sure.
So it will just show up in other places.
Right.
If you put a lid on it for too long. I'm just reading through the comments here. I'm just loving
No, I
it.
was just about to say.
Is it the ego? The ego is hugely involved in this.
Yeah.
So our ego stops us from being able to say, I don't actually know that, or I don't understand that, or I need help.
Right.
And then of course, then that imposter voice, if we have one, which most of us do, over 70% of us do, then our imposter voice goes, they're gonna know you don't know stuff. They're gonna know you're a fraud. You're gonna owe them all kinds of different dialogue that comes up there. So yes, ego is very much involved in that. And I guess, coming back to your point about not accepting compliments, which is another symptom of imposter syndrome for a lot of us, then it's that, oh no, that was nothing. Oh no, this old thing. I just picked this up off the floor today. It's nothing. But
Right.
when we do that, then again, that's us trying not to get too much into our ego, because we've been told not to. We're not supposed to appreciate it. And so, we've talked about this over the last week or so about, really sort of saying, okay, when you get a compliment, say thank you, breathe, and say nothing else, I always feel like I have to say 3 more things back to you,
Right.
which isn't disingenuous. I really mean them,
No.
but I have to like then go, "Oh, I owe you one now," and that
Sure.
is, you see, that's an issue right there. I don't owe you anything because you gave me a compliment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's always made to feel like that it's an exchange. It's some sort of like tit for tat. It's like a quid pro quo whenever someone sort of recognizes you for doing anything, or for, you know, for simply just paying a compliment, or for recognizing you for doing something. And the whole denigration thing where people are made to feel like, oh, they've got to, you know, that's something that's so common with this, especially this idea of like someone pays you a compliment and says, oh, I love this outfit, or da. And you're like, oh, this, I pulled it out of a dumpster and it was on fire. I hate it. It's it's dreadful. It's trash. Thank you so much. You know, it's always about making yourself feel much smaller in that process. And there's only so much of that we can do before we start believing it and internalizing it, right?
Yeah.
And this is the key thing about this. If you're watching this and you want to start owning your success, and you want to start being able to take control of all the things that make you you, of all that power that you hold, because truthfully, you do hold all of that power. You really do. And each time you say, no, I don't, you know, and apologize for yourself in that way, it's you giving that permission to somebody else. It's giving you that power, to your power, to somebody else. And why do you need to do that? The truth is, you don't.
No.
The more you take that step, the more you turn around and say, actually, yeah, no, I did do a good job. I'm actually really good at this. I know what I'm doing. The more you say, yeah, I really appreciated this, and I came here prepared and I did the work and I put this stuff in, the more that you do that and recognize yourself for your achievements, is you sort of recognizing that imposter and saying, you know what, thank you, but I got this. And if you're watching this and you want to, you want to move with this a bit more, part of this is literally about stepping up to the plate for yourself, so that you get to turn around and say, actually, you know what? I deserve this. I own it. It's mine. And there is nothing wrong with that. Like, I loved what you were saying about the kind of the UK culture, which is it's so all about, the UK culture, I think, is all about equating confidence with arrogance. And it's a misequation. Like, it is not correct at all. Hey, Dan, it's so good to hear from you. And like, I totally get what you mean, because we both come from a performance background, and this applies to everybody, whether or not if you're performing or any of this, no matter where you're struggling to show up for yourself in life, on your own personal stage, as we say in Confidence Through Cabaret. This is the thing. If you want to be able to start showing up for yourself, you have to learn how to accept yourself for who you are and embrace yourself for all the things that you truly are. And that includes your successes. You are going to lose out by not embracing the stuff that you do well, and you do stuff really well. You know, there's plenty of this power and energy within this community. You know, within Confidence Through Cabaret community, we have badass cabaret performers and badass dancers and drag performers. We have badass boss bitches. We have amazing, cool people working their butt off every day, doing the things that they're passionate about. And the more that they take up that space and said, you know what? Yeah, this is mine. I own it. The more people around you then go, oh yeah, they do. And that's so important. And that's why we built this course. It's about building each other up. You don't, again, Sarah, you don't have to be a performer. It's wherever we show up for ourselves. This is about whether or not you're trying to show up on your personal life and take credit for the stuff that you want to do, or just celebrate your own successes and feel like you're in control. This is the same if you're walking into a business meeting, you know, or trying to advance within your own specific career. This is just about being able to do that, to show up for yourself, to advocate for yourself, and to know that you are worthy of that success. Because the minute you know that you're worthy, everyone else knows it too. And that's only a good thing.
Yeah. And I think, some of us are surrounded by, people who won't want us to overcome that. Most of the time, that's because they have their own issues. That's because they limit us by their self-limiting beliefs.
Yep.
So not only are we trying to overcome our own self-limiting beliefs, but if you're not surrounding yourself with others who are supporting you in overcoming this,
Yes.
then they will drag you back down. They'll keep on pulling you. You're starting to escape out of the sewer tunnels. I don't know where I've got this image in my head, and they will pull you back. And that's because their self-limiting beliefs are what they're expressing. And I'm not saying that that's always intended to bring you down, but the result is it can bring you down because they might not be aware that they're talking to you from a place of their own self-limiting beliefs. If they're not self-aware, they won't know that. They'll just think that they're being realistic.
Yeah.
The thing is, how can they know what your vision is? How can they're not you,
Yeah.
and these language patterns, like, if I were you, I would. It's like, you're not me and you're never going to be me. And you're not, we might be in the same situation, but we're still not the same.
Yeah.
I just wanted to address something that Sarah made about, the crab effect. That's what I was thinking of, Sarah. That's exactly what I was thinking of. But I had to picture this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for some reason. I don't know why. That says more about me than anything. But I just wanted to address something that Sarah said earlier about, about people think that you can't be a success if you don't have a degree or whatever. And that, for some of us, that's one way that the imposter syndrome shows up as the expert of, we'll keep on taking courses and we'll keep on getting credits and we'll keep on getting titles and we'll never have enough badges or certificates and frames or whatever, pieces of paper that say we can do something. Because we feel like we never really know enough. And that's not true. And I would challenge you to question what's your definition of success before you go any further with that. So I know that you're absolutely, Sarah, not saying, you can't be a success without a degree. And I know you genuinely don't believe that. But I think, you can be a success in your own way, whatever success means for you. And that doesn't require a university degree, and that doesn't says a person who was raised by teachers. But anyway, but that's absolutely true. And my father was a university professor, so he would tell you, that's not a thing. Like that's not the definition of success. Your success is what you want it to be, and so whether or not you have credentials, you have something to say. And that's why we started Confidence Through Cabaret. You have something to say. You deserve to take up and own your space, and you deserve to share your message using your voice. It's just that simple. And that's why we wanted to get into imposter syndrome and really kind of say, no, hold on a second, take up space and do this.
I totally agree. And it's, I love that. I love that you brought up the crab effect, Sarah. I really do. It's such a great metaphor. If people don't know the crab effect, it's the idea of if you pour a bunch of crabs into a boiling pot, they'll, rather than help each other out, they'll pull one another down. And that can certainly be true of life. It can certainly be true of life if you're surrounded by people who aren't, or as Heather put it, who are mired maybe in their self-limiting beliefs and they're not aware of it. Then there can be an effect of just pulling each other down rather than lifting each other up. And that's a whole thing, that's a societal thing. That's a big issue within our culture, particularly in the UK. Certainly I can speak to that. There's a whole thing of like, it's easier to bring each other down rather than, build each other up. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of different theories about why that is. But this is one of the things that I think we've really worked on with Confidence Through Cabaret, is building up a community where we can build each other up and recognize each other for our successes. And one of the things that we talk about within the frame of the webinar is another aspect of how imposter syndrome can show up. And that's, the fear of starting something being so paralyzing, or the idea of not being good enough to start it at all in the first place, stopping you from even attempting it.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that's really common. I've seen this a lot in both, working in corporate sector as well as working, in stage. The amount of times people have said to me, well, I could never do that because blah, blah. I just could never do that. It's not that nobody can, and nobody wants to see it, or I can't, no. And it's such a typical thing. And the reason I bring that up is because often when people have said that to me, I think they feel like they're alone in that feeling that that being limited by these things or having these limitations in place is a really isolating feeling. And the truth is, was it over 70% of us deal with imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
It's, you aren't alone in this feeling. The problem is we don't talk about it enough. And that's part of the reason why we did this, is because, one of the things that drew us into Confidence Through Cabaret in the first place, and one of the things that, bonded me and Heather over this, is the fact there's a lot of times and places where we're told what not to think, feel, say, do, or believe. You're often told more of what you can't do than what you can do. And that's because, the people are very afraid of you taking up your power and taking up that space and being all the things you can be. And that's not yours to deal with. That's their issue. That's a them problem, not a you, as we like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, Sarah, the social identity theory does come in here, although people are starting to question that a lot more now. People are not just kind of staying within their group and, trying to identify and belong at all cost. People are now starting to go, hold on a second. One, do I appreciate and approve of the messages in here? And can I push back? Am I welcome to push back? And if not, should I even be part of this group? And I understand that, when you're talking about family members, for example, you can't just kind of go, I'm not in this group. I know some do and can and have, but most of us, want to stay within that group. So in those situations, you don't want to end up arguing with them. Just talk about something that you can agree on. That's the foundation. Talk about what you can agree on and leave the rest out, and you, so you don't have to belong at all costs. And I'm glad that makes sense. Yeah. And I know, lots of us sort of, for various reasons, sort of say, well, I'm choosing not to be part of this family. I certainly have, with my only brother, and I'm not sad or sorry about it. It's just it's not, we're not morally aligned, and it's not, after years and years and years of trying, it's not a situation where we can just talk about the things that we do agree on and talk about, and get along. We can get along. We can be in the same room. It's not a problem. But in terms of having any extended relationship, that's not a choice I want to make, because we morally disagree with things. And so our values are so completely different, which is always interesting in a family. But our values are so completely different that it doesn't serve me. In fact, it drains me to spend any more than time talking about common things.
Right.
But Sarah, I know you were asking about, but how do we use them? So I'm not sure what that was relating to, but if you wanted to ask that question again about how do we use them, are you thinking about how do we use the strategies? Or because in the webinar, I go through the strategies pretty quickly. It's like, okay, here's a lot of strategies, and some of them will make sense. I explain what they are. Some of them will make sense, and you'll be able to just go and use them right away. And that's what we wanted, was for you to have useful strategies for yourself to use right away. And for some of them, you might want to have more guidance in them. And there are lots of people talking about imposter syndrome right now. And there are lots of people talking also about fake it till you make it, which is starting to make me a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Because the fake it till you make it thing was a downfall for me. I thought, in fairness, it got me onto a lot of stages. It got me onto a lot of conferences where I'd be like, okay, we're gonna fake it till we make it, and then you get going, and it's great for walking into a party and like, okay, I'm gonna fake it that I really want to be here, and then all of a sudden you're having a great time and you forgot.
Yeah.
That's fine, but as a long-term strategy, it doesn't work. You have to be able to face things. And if your imposter syndrome is louder than the other voices in your head, and most of us, like the vast majority of us, do have that internal dialogue. If your imposter is screaming, then you have to learn the strategies to being able to keep that quiet. Otherwise, it will keep you quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah said we talking about expertise. That was in reference to expertise.
Oh, okay. So in terms of how do we use our saying our credentials? I believe your audience needs how you are now to show them how the journey can be done. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. In relation to sharing our expertise, I think so. First of all, sometimes not all of us, but sometimes we use our expertise as kind of like a trump card. Like, yeah, but I have a PhD in this, so that's the end of that conversation.
Right.
And that isn't the right way to be using it, obviously. Where it's needed or welcomed to share our expertise. So where there's relevance to it of, this is why I'm able to speak to this subject, then great. If it's welcomed, if it's kind of like, look, I'm a qualified whatever, and this is my understanding, this is my work, this is my research, this is, my learning, then fine. But if it's not welcomed or it's not relevant, then it is a lot of name dropping.
Yeah, and I think you've also Sarah's also put into the thing about our gifts as well. I think when we're talking about gifts, in terms of our, the things that are innately us, and what we can share with the world, part of that is finding your space, and part of that is giving space over to people so that you can help them when they require it. So if it's about sharing that stuff with somebody else, it's all about looking for the appropriate space and time in which we can make space to do that. So for instance, you wouldn't walk into a room and just burst into song. Well, maybe you would, because it's quite funny. I do quite a lot. But generally you find the right space, and you can look for the cues that will give you that kind of information to say, this is the appropriate time for me to share this. I
think that's the thing, isn't it? Is people won't follow credibility, like credentials. People, well, they will, but only to a point.
Yes,
might make them turn and listen, that this person really does know what they're talking about. But unless you have that story, that credibility, that rapport, that connection, unless you have those things, then it makes us, it makes our experience or our expertise or our degree or whatever irrelevant. One of my son's university, the president there was an astrophysicist and had several PhDs, and he never talked about his PhDs. And he believed of academics. He said they learn more and more about less and less until they know nothing. And that for me sums up when people say, well, I have 3 PhDs and they're in these things, or I have all this experience. I worked in an environment as an expat in the Middle East with men who would say, I have 15 years experience. And I can't think of one of them that had 15 years experience. They'd been there for 15 years.
Right.
But they did not have 15 years experience. They had 1 year experience 15 times.
Right.
And that is entirely different. And instantly when somebody has 15 years of experience or whatever it is, when somebody has passion, when somebody has knowledge, you connect with them. And then, it might be necessary or relevant to share your expertise or where you learned that and earned it from. But very often we follow, it's like leaders. We don't follow leaders because they tell us to. We follow leaders because we're inspired.
Yeah.
And in order to be able to create that connection, that relationship, your imposter can't be screaming to you, you don't know what you're doing, they're going to find out. You need to be able to get that under control. So I love this subject. We can talk about this all day long. We will no doubt talk about self-sabotage, because I want to come back to the thing you said about fear of success. Do you fear success or do you fear failure? It's usually a split. I'd be interested in what that split is in this community.
Yes.
Which one do you fear more, failure or success? Because that's a really interesting subject in itself. Other ways that we self-sabotage ourselves. can be through, different kinds of habits that we use, that we have formed to quieten or numb things down. Those can be related to our imposter's voice. So I'll go and I'll exercise, or I'll eat, or I'll do, whatever it is, some sort of behavior, or not, some sort of behavior um, to quieten that voice down, or almost to kind of punish that voice. There's lots of different ways that we self-sabotage ourselves, and we will come back to those things. I love this subject. We can go through it all day. But I don't want to run so long that nobody can bear the idea of watching this in replay. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the interaction. Thank you for those of you who are going to watch this on replay. We love this. Leave us comments. Check out the webinar. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any feedback. We love it.
Yeah.
I'm low-key freaking out a little bit here, so I'm just going to confess this. Okay, so I know that the imposter material is solid.
Yeah.
I know that it comes from a place of really wanting people to understand their imposter, the impact it has, and the strategies that they can use.
Yeah.
My style on the webinar is so different to my style, how I run conferences, where I am all over the place, I'm really being calm in it. And part of me is going, that's an imposter. You're not really like that. You're really much more noisy. So I wanted to just share that, because it's very real, and
yeah,
it's not an imposter. I very deliberately breathed through that so that I could be sharing vulnerable, thoughtful things. And all of those of us who are extroverts, who are crazy, wacky, loud people, I see you. Because a lot of the time you're using that as your way of hiding. Not always, but often. So I think, when we get a little quieter, when we get a little more vulnerable, when we open up to these things, that's when we can really start to feel into it. And that's when we can start to really see which of the strategies are going to be the most useful or helpful for you.
Yeah.
So my imposter voice is going, oh wow, this is a whole different side, and it's on video. But I'm excited. I'm so excited. Do share your comments about the webinar. Let us know how you're doing.
Yeah, we want to hear.
Yeah, so excited.
Thank you so much to everybody who's joined us today. Like, honestly, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you all, and thank you. And yeah, the Overcome Your Imposter webinar is now live. It's available to watch for free. I put the link into the chat. It's all over the group, and all over the community, and all over the page, and all over the Insta. So it's easily accessible, I promise. If you do have any questions, let us know. And don't forget, if you want to go deeper, we have an entire course that's dedicated to this as well, which includes literally everything from a private social media group where you can go much deeper with other people about this and talk with other people who are on the same journey. Also includes, various extra video modules. We have a whole bonus content sorted for you, and we're even doing special coaching calls, specialized coaching calls with Heather for this.
I cannot wait to get onto those calls. I cannot.
Oh God, I know, right?
I'm starting this week. I'm so excited. Yeah.
So thank you so much, everybody who's joined us. Hit us up if you've got any questions, DM us, contact us on the group, post in the community. We love you so much. My name is Ryan.
I'm Heather.
And this is Confidence Through Cabaret, reminding you that it is your body, your world, your stage.
Bye.
Bye.